I think you can probably go ahead and start.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today to talk about something near and dear to us, the Equal Rights Amendment. My name is Senator Lisa Cutter. I'm from Colorado, and on March 1st, we introduced a joint resolution calling for publication and affirmation of the Equal Rights Amendment. This is something I've been watching and caring about for a long time, and it's just another way to raise awareness. I find it's shocking number of people aren't really aware of where this is at or don't seem to care that much. So I was really pleased to introduce this resolution. The fact is the Constitution does not guarantee equality of the sexes. Women and LGBTQ people have been relegated to second-class citizens, second-class legal status by the courts and in the law. For nearly a century, we've been fighting for this. So I'm really happy to be here with so many colleagues that are also moving in the same direction and chat with y'all today. So now I will kick it to Representative Julie Von Haffen of North Carolina.
Hello, everyone. I'm Representative Julie Von Haffen, state representative from North Carolina. And North Carolina happens to be one of only 12 states left in the country that has not ratified the Equal Rights Amendment. So just this month on International Women's Day, I filed for the third time a ratification bill so that North Carolina can join the 38 other states which have ratified the ERA. I get a lot of questions a lot of times, why is it so important for North Carolina to still ratify this amendment when we've already reached the 38 state threshold? But for me, North Carolina has a long history of actually falling way behind when it comes to women's rights. We were the very last state in the country to ratify the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote. And so I think it's really important that North Carolinians know that there are people in our General Assembly that are continuing to fight for their constitutionally equal rights. We know that here in North Carolina that we just conducted a poll just here in 2023, which basically had polling showing that the support for the Equal Rights Amendment has actually grown over the last 4 to 5 years. The poll back in 2019 showed that about 67% of people in our state supported our bill to pass the ERA, to ratify the ERA, and only 16% opposed it. In 2023, that level of support has increased to 71.5%, and the level of opposition has decreased to 13%. We know that that support is equal among men, women, rural, urban, even Democrat and Republican. It's really not a partisan issue. It has broad support across our state. That's why it's really frustrating that we really haven't been able to do this here in North Carolina. I also wanted to mention that we've been working along with our coalition partners to review all the statutes in North Carolina law, which would need to be changed if the Equal Rights Amendment is passed. The law firm has reviewed over 45,000 pages of documents so that we can get all of our statutes up to gender equality in anticipation of the Equal Rights Amendment passing in Congress. So I'm really proud to be a leader in this issue. This is the third session in a row that I've been the primary sponsor of our bill. It is way past time that North Carolina becomes a beacon for the rest of the South. We have a part to play in this 100-year-long saga, and we owe it to the men and women of our state to continue to fight for gender equality. So thank you so much, Senator Cutler, for having me today, and I'll pass it on to the next person.
Thank you so much, Representative Von Haffen. Before I kick it over, I will mention we did ratify, I forgot to say this, we did ratify in Colorado the amendment in April of 1972, but we all still need to work together to make sure we raise awareness and get this to happen. So I will now turn it over to Representative Nancy Gutierrez of Arizona.
Thank you so much. It's funny to say that you all ratified it in April of 1972 because that's when I was born. So, I mean, it's been a minute. It's been a minute. And that's why I want to champion this in Arizona. We have been entering bills every session for the past 100 years, and they don't get put on committee in Arizona. We are one representative and senator away from a majority in both houses. Luckily, we just elected a Democratic woman Governor Katie Hobbs. So that it has been a wonderful thing in the state of Arizona. But what we're doing today is I am going to try and I'm going to ask for the rules to be suspended and ask for our ERA bill that Representative Tarek and I were the co-sponsors on to be heard and voted on the floor, because it never, yay! I'm so excited to do this. And in the past, this has been tried and they just adjourn, but wish me luck, because we need this. We are being silenced in so many ways. I am a public school teacher in my off time when I'm not in session. And I just want to go back to my students and tell them, not only just my female students, but my LGBTQ students, that this will protect all of them, because they all deserve the right to be equal under our law. So thank you so much for having me. I'm learning so much and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I will now turn it over to Representative Dottie Joseph of Florida. It's great to hear about all these exciting things. Is Dottie here? Maybe not. Rep Joseph. Okay, we'll skip for a moment and go to Senator Sandy Pappas and then come back if she joins us.
Hello, everyone. Senator Sandy Pappas from Minnesota. Very happy to join you all. I've also been on this ERA train for quite a while. I'm carrying the bill for the resolution to Congress. So back in 1973 was when Minnesota legislators recognized the need to protect Americans from sex-based discrimination when we ratified the Equal Rights Amendment with 8 other states. And we've certainly made progress toward gender equality in the last 50 years. But women and people of marginalized genders still face discrimination in the workplace, in education, when seeking healthcare, and beyond. So in Minnesota, we do have some legal protections from discrimination, because in the past we've banned sex-based discrimination. I authored a bill about 8 years ago called the Women's Economic Security Act, where we required equal pay for equal work with state contracts. We also required workplace accommodations for pregnancy and nursing, and have supported gender diversity in a wide range of careers, but we've not been able to get this ERA resolution passed, because we know that these Minnesota protections are not enough, because a future legislature could repeal them, as we've seen that has happened in other states, and certainly the courts could change, as we've seen happen with our U.S. Supreme Court. So that's why this is really important. Now, in our case, I do have that resolution was passed out of rules, and it is on the floor of the Senate, so waiting to be taken up. So we're really happy about that. And like Representative Von Heffen, I do also have a bill that once the ERA passed, or even in the process of it going, we can look at all of our statutes to see if we're in compliance with the ERA. And I haven't done a count, but I bet it's as large as that. So we all know, in 2020, Virginia became the necessary 38 states. We know that deadlines are not binding, they're pretty arbitrary, and that Congress could remove that. And we just really need to get this all going. And I'm just really proud and happy to be on this call with all my colleagues who are working locally in their states to make sure the ERA becomes the 28th Amendment of the U.S. for the U.S. Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we will hear from Senator Mary Kunesh. Is she here?
Yes, yeah. I am. I definitely am.
Yes, you are.
It's great to be on this forum. I'm State Senator Mary Kunesh, and in 2019, I was serving in the Minnesota House, and I passed a bill off of our House floor to add the ERA question to our next elections, because we want to take the question to the people of Minnesota. Should we, in fact, include the statement of equality? Equality under the law shall not be abridged or denied by this state by gender. And at the time, our state was a split legislature with the majority Dems in the House and majority GOP in the Senate. We passed it off the floor in the House, but unfortunately, the Senate would not join us. So we didn't get it done that year. This year, I brought it back. In the Senate, as it was mentioned, we are now a Democrat majority state in the House, the Senate, and the governor. And so I upped it a little bit, and our state amendment states equality under the law shall not be abridged or denied by this state or any of its states or counties or other political subdivisions on account of race, color, creed, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, age, disability, ancestry, or national origin. And it is the expanded version of the other states, recognizing that there are a lot of things that we want to ensure are not going to cause any kind of discrimination. We did pass it through all of our committees here in the Minnesota Senate, and it is sitting on general orders, ready to go for passage on the Senate floor. And I'm really excited to work on this with Senator Pappas and our House members to ensure that we have these explicit protections in Minnesota. And so stay tuned.
Thank you, Senator Kunish. And now we will turn it over to Representative Bonner from Minnesota.
Thank you so much. I am State Representative Kristen Bonner, and I am an unapologetic feminist my entire life, and I stand on the shoulders of those folks who came during the 70s. Again, we had 1973 when we ratified here in Minnesota, and I was probably barely in diapers even at that time. But I can tell you, before coming to the legislature, I was one of the leaders of the Women's March movement here in Minnesota that brought 110,000 folks to the state capitol in the largest single day event in Minnesota state history. I am the reason that ERA is on the platform for Minnesota Women's March. And shortly thereafter transferred all of that power into the Minnesota House to be a champion here with a seat at the table and in the halls of government. And since that time, I have taken the baton in the House from Senator Kunish to sponsor the ERA in the state constitution here. I currently have also the federal resolution to Congress to pave the way for us to have the 28th Amendment solidified into law. And of course, we do have the cleanup bill as well as North Carolina to sort of do that homework and pave the way to say, we are ready to say that the ERA is the law of the land, and we are going to make sure that our statute reflects that as well. It is shocking and dismaying at all the same time that we are still sitting here 100 years later, 50 years later, waiting to make sure that half of the population of our country is acknowledged with equality under the law. You know, we put ourselves out as a beacon of the democratic process across the world, and yet we have still disenfranchised nearly half of our citizens in that respect. And it is time to get it done. It is well past time. And I am so excited. In fact, as it was alluded to here, when we won the trifecta in the room that night, as soon as it was announced, the first thing that came to my mind was we can pass the ERA here in Minnesota on our state level. We can pass those resolutions, we can clean up our statute, and we can get ready for women to have equality. Thanks so much and have a great day. I appreciate your time with me today.
Thank you, Rep. Bonner. This is really inspiring. I'm getting even more charged up this morning. So great to hear from you all. And now I will turn it over to Representative Laura Tierick from Arizona.
Well, hello. I am so pleased to be here and to be joining Representative Gutierrez as well. We co-sponsored the ERA, and what was really special about doing this in Arizona, at least for Representative Gutierrez and myself, is that we're both former presidents of the National Organization for Women. So fighting for women's rights and women's equality is something that we've both been committed to a long time. And You know, it's a strange feeling to still be at this 100 years in, and to think about, you know, our mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers who came before us, who have been in this fight and advocating for equality for such a long time. So on the one hand, it is a tremendous honor to have introduced this in the House this year and to carry that legacy forward. But on the other hand, it's very, very frustrating that we are still talking about this when there are so many other fights that we know still lay before us. One thing that gives me an enormous amount of hope is that here in Arizona, we have our ERA task force, so a group of women and allies who have been so dedicated to this fight, but we also have a group of young women who have taken this up. And when I say young, I mean high school and college age, and they're called Generation Ratify. And it's so exciting to see the next generation of women come up behind us, ready to take this on, ready to get this over the finish line for all 50 states across the country. So it's an honor to be here, and thank you very much.
Thank you for that update. And now we will turn it over to Senator Liz Krueger of New York to talk about the amendment.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here with all of you. And I see my friend and partner in this effort, Rebecca Seawright from the New York State Assembly, has also joined us. And we have now passed our resolution in 2 different sessions. In New York State, you have to pass constitutional amendments twice in both houses in 2 different sessions. And then it goes to the voters to decide through referendum in November 2024. And I think Rebecca and I both watched our adult lives how long it took to try to just get women into the US Constitution. So we took a slightly different approach in New York State. We said, you only do these things very rarely. We're going to go for an inclusive new ERA in the New York State Constitution. So our language, which is the first time the Constitution would have been open to anything like this since the 1930s, includes expansion through the Equal Rights Amendment to assure prohibition of discrimination on account of a person's age, disability, ethnicity, national origin, sex, including sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, pregnancy outcomes, and reproductive health care choices. So we try to be very explicit. This is going to protect your right to make decisions about your own pregnancy. You're going to have the rights. If you're LGBTQ, you're going to have rights regardless of the craziness of many courts and states in this country. If you're transgender, everybody should be equal for discrimination protection under the law. And we've also learned in New York State, because we've passed many individual statutes that have some of these protections, but the truth is, until you walk into a court and can win a challenge under a judge, you really don't have those protections, as we now know from the US Supreme Court and the terrible damage that is going on to reproductive rights all over the country. So we decided to try to leapfrog, so to speak, the US Congress and clearly the Supreme Court and build these protections into our state law. We have to make sure everyone comes out and votes in November 24 for this, but I think Rebecca and I are confident that the coalition we have built that is statewide on so many issues will be there to help make sure people understand the importance of voting for this. And we are also just so proud to see all these amazing women legislators in states where sometimes it's a lot more hostile to being a progressive feminist fighting for rights and protections for everyone. So I just want to applaud all of you on this call for the work you're doing in your state capitals. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, I see now that I believe we have Representative Dottie Joseph from Florida. We do. Please jump in.
Hello, everybody. I'm like playing double duty. I'm in the middle of another meeting. Here's some, well, you can't see it because I got my virtual Zoom background. Thank you all for having me. I will just say that, you know, we have been fighting tirelessly for the Equal Rights Amendment. And as an attorney, specifically in the area of civil rights, it is paramount to ensure that we have a settled constitutional right to equality under the law for men and women that goes over and above any of these statutes that we have. As we know, these statutes are readily repealable. And while we have statutes that protect us in some areas of employment with Title VII and in education with Title IX, we know that it doesn't cover everything. We still have areas that have different levels of pregnancy discrimination. We still have areas that provide for repealing a lot of these statutes. We see a lot of that in the states, particularly like Florida, which has been attacking everything from gender studies to all kinds of things. So if we had the ERA there, it would definitely add a higher level of protection that is not readily repealable by states on any kind of whim. So this is my third time filing the legislation here in Florida, and I continue to join in that fight. Thank you all, ladies.
Thank you so much, Representative Joseph. I will now turn it over to Representative Arrington from Indiana.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here and to have this opportunity. Indiana ratified in 1977 after a 3 or 4 year battle to get the job done. And I was a young NOW member at the time, and part of that effort to get the Indiana legislature to ratify the ERA. Now, I might say the ERA fight brought me to the state capitol for the very first time. I'm still battling away. Our resolution is being introduced first in the Senate by Senator Jean Breaux. She has a committee meeting, so wasn't able to attend. I'm still fighting because, as you know, every year reminder of why we need to put equality into our Constitution. This year it occurred last week, March 14th, which was Equal Pay Day. And that's the day when U.S. working women finally reached the wages white men earned by the end of last year. And this wage gap, year after year, leads to a lifetime income gap, a Social Security gap, and a pension gap. The Equal Rights Amendment will provide a powerful tool to close these gaps. And today we're calling on Congress to pass their resolution to remove the deadline and finally put a ban on sex discrimination in the highest law of the land. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much, Rep. Arrington. Now we'll go to, let's see, Rep. Seawright from New York is here, I believe.
Thank you all. It's great to be here and so inspiring to hear what each of you are doing. I'm very fortunate to have Liz Krueger as my state senator. I represent the Upper East Side of Manhattan, Yorkville, and Roosevelt Island. And Senator Krueger is modest. She is also the chair of the Finance Committee and has been such a leader and champion for women and choice and the Equal Rights Amendment. So as she pointed out, we included a lot of broad categories in this amendment, and now the work begins to educate the public that it will be on the ballot in November of 2024, and work with a broad coalition and college students all over to get everyone really fired up to vote for it and to pass it. So thank you all for everything that each of you are doing.
Fabulous. Thanks for joining us. Now I will, let's see, where did she go? I was going to turn it over to Rep. Abelati from Hawaii. Do I see her still here?
Yes, I am here.
Oh, oh, there you are. I'm sorry. Please share.
Aloha from Hawaii. My name is Della Alvalati, and I'm privileged to represent urban Honolulu here in Hawaii. On this day, 51 years ago, the Hawaii State Legislature was the first state to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. So this is a historic day for our state. Later that same year, our electorate voted and instituted into our state constitution the protection for equality for women. It is so powerful to be here, so that in February of this year, when Bettina Hager of ERA Coalition reached out to me to introduce a resolution urging the President of the United States to publish the Equal Rights Amendment as a 28th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. I could not say no. For all of my lifetime, I have never known a world where equality was not just assumed in the state of Hawaii. So the events of recent times have shocked me, and it is so heartwarming and amazing to be able to join this group that is continuing to carry the torch. Because after we have all the states that ratify, we are going to push. I see everyone on this call. We are going to push for this to be put in as a 28th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. I was able to join this year 3 other states, Georgia, Illinois, and Minnesota, who are also introducing resolutions to urge the president to publish the ERA. And so this is going to continue. And I know that in our lifetime, we will see this happen. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much. So it looks like we've exhausted the ladies that are on the call for the moment. If anyone else joins us late, we can toss it back over to them for sure. But I just want to say you guys, again, have been so inspiring. And I think this connection is really powerful because I think we all feel like, what is going on? What is anyone doing? And to hear all the movement and the momentum is amazing. I was also, I'm eager to talk to Representative Bonner. I was also an organizer for the Women's March and have founded the Women's Caucus in Colorado. So these things are incredibly important, and you guys are all just giving me a lot of energy this morning. So since we don't have any other of our speakers here yet, I'm going to turn it over to Patina Hager, the DC Director of ERA Coalition. So super excited to be able to connect and hear from you this morning.
Thank you so much, Senator Cutter. On behalf of the ERA Coalition, I want to thank every one of these incredible legislators for their commitment to the Equal Rights Amendment and for being here today. I want to especially thank you, Senator Cutter from Colorado, whose idea it was to bring leaders who are championing the ERA and their states together from across the country, and AJ Conroy from the ERA Coalition team, who works so closely with the legislators to see this happen. If there is any doubt that the ERA is an issue of importance to the American public, I hope everyone looks to these legislators here today. The legislators know the law, and they know the Equal Rights Amendment is as necessary today as it was when it was first introduced 100 years ago. They are voices from across the country and outside the Beltway that are calling on Congress to act to recognize the ERA as valid, having satisfied all requirements in Article 5 of the Constitution. The ERA has always been and continues to be incredibly popular, transcending party lines, with recent polls showing that 8 in 10 adult Americans want it in the Constitution. To say otherwise is just plain false. Equality should be a foundational principle that this country governs by, not something to fear. We may not always agree on what that looks like, but we should all agree that every person in this country should be treated with respect, fairness, and protected against discrimination of any form. That is what the 24 words of the ERA's first section promise and what they will do. On the 51st anniversary of Congress's passage of the federal ERA, we call on Congress to act and anticipate a vote in the Senate shortly. We hope the senators will listen to the voices and representatives of the states who are championing these bills and vote in support to move our country toward a more perfect union. And I want to thank all of you again. I am so inspired by everyone who is here, by the states. I was inspired when I first, with the first 2 or 3 came on, and seeing so many states from across the country who care about this really gives me hope for the future of the ERA. So thank you so much. And I will
thank
send
you.
to
Yeah.
Christy.
Thank you so much, Bettina, for that wrap up. So we're going to open it to question and answers. So if you are on and would like to ask a question of one of the legislators still with us, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A. We do have some press on the call too. And so I would like to start with Bill Werner in Minnesota. And I think you should be able to unmute now.
There we go. Now I've got it unmuted. You can hear me? Great.
Yep, you're good.
Out of full respect to all the representatives from lawmakers from other states who are on the call, I'd just like to ask a quick question of a couple of really specifically one lawmaker from Minnesota, Senator Kunesh. and I'm sorry haven't been as close to this as I should be. We're juggling a lot of things, but your bill would put a constitutional amendment before voters. Is that correct?
That is absolutely
Okay.
correct. Yes.
And the question I
We
have
feel
is
it's real. Oh, go ahead.
oh, please, I apologize. The question I have, first of all, is how critical is that versus having statutory changes? And the second question I have is that by putting that on the ballot, are you worried that you're going to unleash a storm of publicity and efforts against this, as we know has happened in other cases? Thank you.
Mhm. Well, I think it's really absolutely important that we put it on the ballot and take it to the people of Minnesota to endorse and support the effort. It really does have to come from the people in order to enshrine it in our Constitution. And are we concerned? We have some concern that there will be strong pushback given the current feel of how things are in Minnesota and across the nation. But we're not going to let that deter us from the work that we're going to do. That might mean we have to work double hard to educate and inform people across Minnesota on the necessity for this constitutional amendment. And we're not afraid to do that. We aren't going to back down. But as you've heard, the majority of people, and that also, from what we understand in Minnesota, support a statement of equality, the Equal Rights Amendment in our Constitution. And so we are counting on the people of Minnesota to do the right thing.
All right, just one follow-up, if I may, Senator. Are you concerned about resources from other parts of the country being brought to bear on this, that Minnesota might become a focal point for this if there's a constitutional amendment on the ballot? I mean, I understand that effort is going on in other states, but
yeah,
are you concerned about that at all?
I can't say I'm concerned, but I am very much aware of that possibility. But on the other hand, I think we will also get a lot of national support for the ERA coming forward. And so again, it's going to be a lot of work, and we're just going to have to put our feet on the ground and talk to people and help them understand how important it is that we do this.
Thank you, Senator. And thank you to the other lawmakers from Minnesota and the other states also for giving us some perspective on this. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill. If we have any other press or any other questions, you can put them in the Q&A. I will take a point of personal privilege to say that we had some folks reach out to ask for the recording so that they could get your statements and share those out. And so we will be sharing that out with them and different media outlets as well. So just putting that out there. Any other questions for our gracious representatives and senators who are joining us today? Feel free to put them in the Q&A. If you put them in the chat, they'll probably get buried, but I can try to find them. And I think Representative Bonner also had some thoughts to add.
Yeah. Thank you, Christy. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate Bill's question. First of all, are we afraid of folks coming in from out of state? Absolutely not. Bring it on. And the reason I say that is because I think women are united in saying this is craziness. We absolutely must have equality ensured in the greatest country in the world in our Constitution. We cannot ignore 50% of the population. And I think folks agree with that statement. But the other thing I also wanted to mention, because Bill had asked about why is it so important to have it in the Constitution? Right? We have all these beautiful laws that we've built to try and ensure equality over time. And everybody says, isn't that enough? The truth is, it's not enough. Right now, if we were to take a case of discrimination, for example, to court, it's like rolling the dice. You have about a 50% chance of success. But if we have a constitutional amendment as a backstop to form the foundation, those chances go up to about 74%, I believe it is. In other words, the chances get substantially greater that we can actually enforce the laws that we have. And so I think that there are some really great reasons why we should absolutely do this work. And I think that most folks would agree that rolling the dice is not where we want to stand when it comes to women's rights or rights for anyone under the Constitution. So that is why it is fundamental that we must have the Equal Rights Amendment in the Constitution.
Well said. Thank you so much. If we don't have any other questions in the Q&A, if anyone has any last thoughts or statements they want to share with us before we say goodbye to everybody. Just a wave. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. We will be sharing out a report on this. I'm sure our panelists will be sharing out their thoughts on social media as well. And we will have a recording. So thank you all for joining us today.
Weren't we going to do a group photo, or did somebody get that?
I got it already.
All right, great.
I took it while you all were speaking. I'll put together the best shots I can of everyone. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us today. And thank you all for your work on the Equal Rights Amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Good luck
everybody.
on all
Good
of
luck.
the work that you're doing.
Keep up
Bye.
the great
Thank you,
work.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
How do you feel?
So I think you are the host and you'll